Across the south of New Jersey, there are 1.1 million acres of pine forest. From the northern part of Ocean County down to Cape May, the Pinelands National Reserve occupies 22% of the state's land area and is the largest body of open space in the Mid-Atlantic Seaboard between Boston and Richmond. Additionally, 45% of the region, or around 493,000 acres, are owned by the public. However, a part of this reserve is of particular note, sourcing several urban legends, such as the Jersey Devil. This is the story of the New Jersey Pine Barrens. I'm your host, Ryan Socash, and you're watching It's History. Today we will be discussing some very famous New Jersey folk culture, including the story of the Jersey Devil. And once you get done watching this, you should check out my source, a documentary on Magellan TV featuring a much more in-depth take on the story of the Jersey Devil and supported by countless real-life witness accounts. This is the best documentary on the topic available anywhere, and the film struck a personal chord with me because it actually shows the real-life places associated with this famous legend, something I know that any true New Jerseyan would be moved by. And the news gets better because all It's History fans can watch this documentary for free with my special link in the description below. Let me explain. Magellan TV is a documentary streaming service founded by filmmakers with the most varied history content available anywhere. Actually, 15 to 20 hours of new content is added each week, with a growing collection of 4K high-definition content for no additional cost. So you'll never run out of something to watch. In addition to history, subscribers enjoy other extensive collections on science, true crime, travel, and more with zero ads. Anytime, anywhere, and on all major devices. Like I said before, the It's History crowd can get the first month totally free. And then after that, you can get yourself an annual membership for only $59.88. You only pay $4.99 a month for 3,500 hours worth of documentaries. So click that link in the description below to get your first full month for free. And now, back to the Jersey Pine Barrens. The Pine Barrens are renowned for rich forests, hiking trails, lakes, and streams for kayaking or canoeing, but at one point it had a very different claim to fame. The society that knows it as a beautiful hiking destination can be considered newcomers to the area, as history begins here over 10,000 years ago when humans first occupied the region. Back then, it was a much colder area. In fact, it was closer to a tundra than any climate associated with the East Coast today. Regardless, the first people to settle this area adapted, hunting long extinct animals and living around small ponds. Remnants of their culture are still present and often rediscovered. They remained in this area for thousands of years, and by 5000 BCE, the climate resembled the modern day much more closely. Throughout these times, the natives' equipment evolved as their surroundings did, using stone and bone instruments that archaeologists can still track to this day. By the 1600s, Europeans began colonizing the area of the Pinelands. Specifically, Henry Hudson sailed into the Delaware Bay in 1609, marking the start of European exploration. After the English seized New Jersey from the Dutch in 1664, shipbuilding and whaling became the region's largest industries, as was original status quo until 1765 when the settlers built the first large furnaces in the area. These furnaces served primarily to refine the region's bog iron deposits, and it was with these furnaces that the interior of the Pinelands became of use to the settlers. As the American Revolution flared to life, the Battle of Chestnut Creek occurred near Port Republic, where the British attempted to destroy the ironworks at Badstow and failed. The interior of the Pinelands soon gained a glass production industry, as its high-quality sands were perfect for that. And as time went by, more industries came. Cotton mills, cranberry bogs, paper mills, wineries, and rail lines amassed, bringing newcomers with them. But there were industries that left as well. Whaling ended around the turn of the 19th century, and the iron furnaces went silent in 1869. The rail lines in particular forever changed the region. Settlement patterns wholly changed to fit in with the rails, leaving many of the structures in the Pine Barrens empty. Resorts by the shore began to appear, partially facilitated by the railways. The berry industry also hit its heights here, with blueberries and cranberries becoming mainstream in the region. But sadly, with the rise of the automobile and the fall of the train, the New Jersey Pine Barrens began to change, taking on a more disheveled and mysterious image. The Pine Barrens have been home to countless myths and mysteries throughout the ages, a place where supernatural sightings are not uncommon. The most famous of these is undoubtedly the Jersey Devil. The story of the Jersey Devil goes a little something like this. A woman by the name of Deborah Leeds bore 13 children, the last one born in 1735. However, this child was no normal baby. Instead, it appeared to be a demon with hoofs, bat wings, and a horse's head. Perhaps even more notable than its appearance was its voice. Allegedly, its high-pitched scream generally tips off the unsuspecting people of New Jersey to its presence, leaving them in complete and utter horror. The first person who claimed to recognize this beast had a separate claim to fame aside from the Jersey Devil: Joseph Bonaparte, who held the title of King of Naples from 1806 to 1808, and then Spain from 1808 to 1813, and brother of French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte I. Joseph had fled to the United States after his younger brother surrendered in France. He was in the Pine Barrens in 1820 when he supposedly saw the Jersey Devil in person. 20 years later, some mysterious force suddenly and brutally killed various livestock overnight, and as there was no other suspect with this hideous monster on the loose, the Jersey Devil gained more notoriety as the cause for the killings. Now, that could have been the end of it. The brother of the world's most famous emperor sees a monster, and some livestock dies mysteriously in New Jersey, a classic tale in the American wilderness, of course. However, it didn't go away. Far from it. As it happens, in the early 1900s, there were even more attacks on livestock, property, and even people. As the decades went by, even more sightings came in, but one of these sightings sparked quite a frenzy, because it may have been more real than anyone wanted. In 1909, Navy Commander Stephan Decatur tested cannonballs at Hanover Mills Works in the Pine Barrens. He and his troops had some of the heaviest ordnances available to the United States at the time and tested them on set targets. However, through the bush of the woods, the commander saw an intimidating figure. It didn't respond to any of his hails or warnings, and it most certainly didn't appear to be human. So with no other option, he took the most American route. The cannonball bored a massive hole in the beast's side, but it didn't even flinch. It rushed off into the wilderness before the commander could even give chase. As the year went on, attacks and sightings increased to unprecedented heights, with nearly 1,000 sightings in the area. It appeared that the cannon shot only enraged the Jersey Devil, and the residents of the Pine Barrens would feel consequence. As a result of the increased attacks in 1909, the Pine Barrens basically shut down. The state ordered children to stay inside for fear of the devil slaughtering the people's young. The state gave the adults a task of their own: capture the devil and gain a $10,000 reward. No one could catch the devil, but strange tracks appeared in various fields on several occasions. These tracks all seemed similar, and the police generally agreed that hoofs were the cause. So the bloodhounds came forth, ordered to follow the hoof marking to their source, hopefully putting an end to this Jersey Devil business. However, be it by lack of evidence or awareness of the evil that they were following, the bloodhounds allegedly refused to follow the tracks. And with that, the Jersey Devil appeared to be satisfied the following year, and sightings slowly faded away. The region went through the 1910s and most of the roaring 20s with only a few sightings and attacks. But in 1927, an unlucky man had a brush up with the demon that everyone had thought was long gone. On the western edge of the Pine Barrens, a taxi driver in Selma City had to pull over. He had blown out a tire on something, but luckily he had a spare in the back. But as he was finishing up with exchanging the tire, he saw something out in the forest, something tall, with an intimidating silhouette. He quickly got into the driver's seat and took off, but the Jersey Devil flew right towards him, allegedly pounding on the roof of his cab. Eventually, the monster flew off into the night. As time went by, many more sightings came, with a large influx in the 1960s, and with another bounty placed on the beast, this time for $250,000, the hunt was on, but unfortunately to no avail. The Jersey Devil is still generally believed to be a myth, as even over 100 years later, no one has ever caught it, and all the footage that can be produced can be chalked up to a hoax. And here's where I'd like to offer my 2 cents. Judge me if you want, say that it's historically inaccurate, but it's time for me to come out of the closet. I'm a believer. I believe in the New Jersey Devil. I spent years of my life in the Pine Barrens and had something of an encounter, as did my brother, who lives in the Pine Barrens to this day. But I'd rather not bring this video too off track by telling private stories, so let me know if you'd like to hear about my Jersey Devil encounter. I'll make a deal. If we get 1,000 new subscribers from New Jersey, I'll make a special video telling you about the time that I had a Jersey Devil sighting. Anyhow, the Jersey Devil is not the only strange occurrence in the Pine Barrens. As mentioned earlier, the area once had a thriving iron industry. However, with the rush of the coal industry, ironworks moved elsewhere, and families that had heavily invested in it became bankrupt, resulting in not only abandoned homes, but what you could best describe as ghost towns. Many of these places had trees grow in and around collapsing structures. And it isn't just the iron towns that lay derelict. There are scores of settlements around the Pine Barrens that either never took off or whose settlers abandoned them for one reason or another. One such abandoned building is the Brooksbury Brick Factory. Constructed in the early 1900s, the factory was ready to be opened, with a connection to the ever-important train network, but unfortunately, its owner suddenly died, setting back the opening date a substantial amount. And as fate would have it, this factory never opened. In 1915, an enormous fire tore through the area, killing its caretaker and razing the factory. Today, it serves as a home for graffiti and yet more trees. Many developers saw an opportunity in these derelict towns. After all, what better place to settle a new town than on top of an existing one? One such venture brought a great deal of attention to the area, known as Pinelands, and the developers went ballistic with their advertisements. The town, which had no more than a dozen houses, found itself within a new moniker, the Magic City, a haven for artists and those of superior intellect. The developers split the land into 13,100 plots and took to market. Perhaps somewhat amusingly, those who arrived found only a derelict area, consisting of an old mattress factory and a few decrepit houses connected by dirt roads. Of the 3,000 plots purchased, only a few people decided to settle. The developers walked away with a $250,000 profit, but the town's grand design never came to be. Our final tale from the Pine Barrens is not about a place or a monster, but a man and a plane wreck. Emilio Carranza Rodriguez was a prominent figure in Mexican aviation. After Charles Lindbergh's transatlantic flight and his follow-up flight to Mexico City, much of the country became fascinated with the skies. Some of Mexico's most influential men created a copy of Lindbergh's aircraft, the Spirit of St. Louis, called the Mexico Excelsior. They decided that Emilio would fly this new aircraft on a round trip from Mexico City to New York City. At this point, the Mexican pilot was a national hero, having already set aviation records with his 1,200-mile flight from Mexico City to Juarez. He also held the record for the longest non-stop flight by a Mexican pilot, the 1,575-mile flight from San Diego, California to Mexico City, after which the president of the great pilot's country congratulated him. His flight to New York went off without a hitch. Its many stages gave him chances to rest and assess any potential danger. However, the flight back to Mexico City was going to be a brutal challenge. Much like Lindbergh's transatlantic flight, this non-stop flight posed a harsh test of endurance. The pilot delayed for 3 days due to suboptimal weather, but he took off without warning on the evening of July the 12th, 1928. According to some sources, he received a telegram from a Mexican general that forced him to fly, disregarding the weather. Allegedly, that telegram was later found in his pocket reading, "Leave immediately or the quality of your manhood will be in doubt. Regardless of any supposed commands, the flight ended just as abruptly as it began, as the Lindenberg of Mexico crashed into the New Jersey Pine Barrens about 50 miles south of New York. When blueberry pickers discovered his body the next day, his flashlight was embedded into his right palm, apparently looking for a place to land before mistakenly crashing. And there, in the field to this day, lies a memorial to the aviator, funded by the people of Mexico and America alike in respect for the fallen hero. It features an arrow pointing upwards on the side of an Aztec eagle diving downwards on the other. On its granite is inscribed a phrase both in English and Spanish. People of Mexico, hope that your high ideals will be realized. Every year, on the Saturday closest to the 10th at 1 p.m., American Legions Post 11 and representatives from the Mexican consulate in New York City and Philadelphia visit this monument and hold a ceremony honoring the aviation legend. The Pine Barrens are home to many stories, structures, and legends, known for being a place with deep history and prehistoric ties to Native American findings. And I can assure you that if you spend some time there, somewhere between Mrs. Leeds' disgraceful monster son and the pristine beauty of nature, you'll discover its magic. So check out our New Jersey history playlist, subscribe to It's History if you'd like to hear my Jersey Devil encounter story, or consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button. This is Ryan Socash signing off.